ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome back to Wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. In this series of Wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, we are looking at Bhagavad Gita from the practical point of view, because this Bhagavad Gita is not just a book of philosophy. It is a book of practical application. That is why it is said that this is the instruction manual for humans. So if it is an instruction manual, it should have some practical tips and tricks that we can utilize in our day-to-day life. So we are actually looking at the verses from that perspective. And even if the chapters are talking about either Nishkam Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Ashtanga Yoga that is currently going on, we are focusing on what specific practical things that we can start implementing in our day-to-day life, looking at those verses. So let us continue. So we are on chapter 6, entitled Dhyana Yoga. And last week, we have seen first 14 verses uh, of this chapter. And initially, we talked about the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, which starts from Yama, Niyama, Asana. Yama means what you should do, what you should not do. Then Niyama is what you should always regularly do. Then Asana, the physical postures that can give good health. And then Pranayam, which actually can control the mind, as well as it can increase the life as well. So Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam. Then Pratyahara. Pratyahara is where you are trying to remove the objects or detach the mind from the sense objects. The senses from the sense objects you're trying to detach. That is Pratyahara. And Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi is the meditation process, which is at the beginning level, intermediate level, and at the highest level, which is the Samadhi. So that is the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga that we have seen. So even before the Lord starts talking about Ashtanga Yoga in this chapter, in the beginning, he talks about again Nishkam Karma Yoga. And he mentions, just reminds Arjuna that even after this chapter, don't ask again that, oh, I will give up the work and I don't want to do the work, as he has been saying in the beginning, that he doesn't want to fight this war. So, and at the beginning of third chapter, fifth chapter as well, he has asked similar questions. So to avoid that, Lord is actually mentioning that we have to keep doing work. Our duty needs to be continued. And while explaining that, he's explaining the difference between renunciation and yoga. And basically, he says that they are not different, they are same. Why? Because in yoga as well, you have to actually give up the sense enjoyment. If you want to actually follow the process of yoga, you have to give up sense enjoyment. That is renunciation. So he's saying renunciation in yoga are exactly same, and it is not giving up the work, but giving up the attachment to the fruits of work. So that is the message that he has repeatedly given. It is not the first time he has talked about it. He has already mentioned that in the second chapter, third chapter, fifth chapter. Again, he's mentioning it here as well. And if there is any point which is emphasized, is repeated, that is mainly for emphasis. So in our childhood as well, if there is certain things that our parents wants to teach us, they will repeat it multiple times. They will mention to us, and that is how it gets imbibed in our mind, in our intelligence. So that is what the Lord is explaining to us, that um, in the practice of yoga, don't give up the work, but give up the attachment that we have towards the fruits of our work. And such yoga requires controlled mind. So then the Lord talks about in the fifth and sixth verses when the mind becomes our friend and when it is an enemy. So when our mind is controlled, then it is our friend. And when it is uncontrolled, then we are actually following the dictation of envy, anger, greed, all those anarthas which are there in our heart. And in that situation, our mind is not our friend, it is our enemy. Um, and the and the Lord also talks about in Ashtanga Yoga, there are two different stages. He compares that like a ladder, and he says that there is a yoga aruruksha stage, which is the beginning level, and then there is yoga arudha stage, which is the um, advanced level. And how we can go from the lower level to higher level, it is mainly by control of the mind. And then from the 10th verse, we have seen the Lord has started talking about from actually verse number 10 to 32. The Lord explains the process of Ashtanga Yoga, different stages of Ashtanga Yoga, including the Samadhi and how this Ashtanga Yogi gets the Paramatma realization. So all of that has been explained. So this is a bit technical part, 10 to 32, and we are going to cover at least, okay, we have already covered the first four verses of that section. 10 to 14 we have already covered. That's five verses, yeah. So that we have already covered. So remaining verses we are going to cover up to 32, hopefully today. So in that initial phase of this description, the Lord explains how to sit, where to sit, how to meditate. And basically, just by looking at those few verses, we can understand that it is so difficult that it is so difficult to do, especially Ashtanga Yoga, that you have to find a secluded place. You have to find a sacred place. Then you have to sit not too high, not too low. You have to sit on a kusha grass, then some deer skin on top of it, then some soft cloth, and then you have to sit erect with your like spine straight, and so many things which was mentioned. Then some rules and regulations were mentioned that you have to abstain from sex. Then you have to actually, while meditating, you have to focus on the tip of the nose. Your eyes are half closed, half open, and you're in that particular stage. You're trying to control your mind and you're trying to meditate. So, and you're free of fear as well. So many things were mentioned at the beginning itself. This is just the initial beginning stage of Ashtanga Yoga. And then the Lord is going to explain it further now from verse number 15. So let's continue. Verse number 15 of chapter 6. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah shantim nirvana paramam matsamstham adigachati. Who wants to read? There are lots of verses to read, so please raise your hand quickly. Yes, Shanti Mataji. You want to go? You want to do? No. Okay. Who wants to read? There are some hands up. Somehow or the other I'm not able. Yeah. Mahendra Prabhuji, then Neeraj Prabhuji, and then Surananda Prabhuji. You can do in that sequence.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So this verse is explaining what result such a yogi is getting, who's now sitting still in a secluded place, properly following all the rules, and he's trying to control the mind and meditate properly. So what is going to happen? So this verse is explaining that there will be cessation of material existence. Basically, he will get liberated from this material world. This material existence, he will go beyond. Where will he go? He will go to the spiritual kingdom. It is said that he attains the kingdom of Krishna. So immediately from this verse, we can understand that uh, the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. So the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is not having good health or having a long life or achieve some mystic powers. The goal of Ashtanga Yoga is cessation of material existence and going to the kingdom of God. So going from material world to the spiritual world. So that is the goal. So this is very important to understand. because many people actually do Ashtanga yoga practices or even some part of the Ashtanga yoga practice for some material benefits. So the goal of any yoga process is not any material desire. It is some spiritual achievement that we are looking at. We want to get purified, and with that in that purified state, we want to serve the Supreme Lord properly. And different yoga practices wants to serve in a different way or the different manifestation or realization. So here in Ashtanga Yogi is focusing on the Paramatma. So that is what they are trying to do. But it is not some material thing. Again, they are trying to achieve the spiritual perfection, self-realization, and they are trying to achieve um, going back to the kingdom of God. Right. So let's move to the next verse. नात्यश्नतस्तु योगोऽस्ति न चैकान्तम् अनश्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन.
There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough.
Thank you. Very important verse. Let's read actually the next verse as well, which is related, and then we'll talk those two verses together. युक्ताहार विहारस्य युक्तचेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः. Surananda Prabhuji. And then Tripti Mataji, next one you can do.
He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So this verse number 16 is explaining to us that there is no possibility of one becoming a yogi. That is, it is it is not saying that there is a possibility or little possibility or whatever. It is saying that there is no possibility of once becoming a yogi if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much and does not sleep enough. So regulation is required. So regulated habits are required. So eating not too much or too little. So if you eat too much, then it is said that our stomach, how much to eat. So half of the stomach should be full. It should be filled with food, 1/4 with water, and 1/4 with air. That is the right amount of food that we should be eating. So if you eat too much, then there is no water there, sorry, no air remaining. And then the digestion cannot happen properly inside the stomach. Also, a lot of energy will go into the stomach for digestion, and we will feel very sleepy. And we will, like, on sometimes when you eat too much, immediately after some time, you feel that, oh, I'm sleepy, I will take some rest. It is because we have eaten too much, and that is the reason why our stomach is working so hard and we feel a bit sleepy. And if we haven't eaten enough, then there is a lot of air, and that air will cause problem in the stomach. So we can't eat too much, we can't eat too little. Same goes with the sleep. Not too much or too little. In the purport, in this verse, purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada says, not too much or too little means 6 hours of sleep. If you are sleeping for 6 hours, it is not too much or too little. If it is 7, 8, 10, 12, that is too much. And if you're sleeping less than 6 hours, then it is too little. But of course, depending on the age and the body type, it can little vary. But of course, it is not far away from that number, then it is not too much or too little. So purpose of our food and sleep is that our body should get rejuvenated. So sleeping is also required for that. So the body is resting, and then after we wake up, we are again strong and healthy, and we have energy to do the work for the day. Same with eating. The purpose is to actually eat and then give energy to the body so that it can do the activities that we want to do. But if we are sleeping too much, then you are resting the body too much, and you are not having enough time to do the real activity that you want to do. And the purpose of eating again is to give energy, but if you have eaten too much because of which you're sleeping, then again you do not have the energy to do the activity that you want to do. So that is why this yogi has to have regulated habits. And the next verse also talks about eating, sleeping, but it also adds few more things, recreation and work as well. And it says it has to be yukta ahara, yukta vihara, and then yukta cheshtasya, yukta karmasu. So that is what is mentioned. So regulated in eating, sleeping, recreation, and work. Everything has to be regulated. Now, what is regulation? Regulation means the quantity needs to be regulated. So eating, sleeping, we have seen, not too much, not too little. So quantity, sleeping as well, not too much, too little. Same with recreation as well. So for yogi, of course, he is in the forest, secluded place. What kind of recreation? He doesn't have a TV channel with 100 things, or a mobile phone with a network there that he's checking WhatsApp in between his meditation, or Facebook or whatever. It is not possible for him. So recreation for a yogi is he can go for a little walk, and that way he can get some recreation. That is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions in his commentary. And what kind of work? Of course, he has to also go and get some bhiksha, or cook some food for himself or whatever. So that is work. Also, in the beginning stage of Ashtanga Yoga, we saw Aruruksha stage. He has not given up the work. He is still doing the work. So the quantity, quality, and timing, or how much he does, that also needs to be regulated. So for us, we can actually learn from this verse quite a lot. So eating and sleeping is clear, but at the same time, recreation and work also needs to be understood properly. Sometimes we work too much, like we work so much that we do not have time for any of our spiritual practice. So then it is overworking. The whole point of working so that we can maintain our body properly and whatever is required for the body. For example, you'll require this house, you need to pay for this internet connection or whatever that we are using. But all of that, our needs to be balanced or controlled. And with that, if our needs are controlled, then we don't have to actually overwork. And we will get enough time for practicing our spiritual process as well. And how much is too much? How much work is too much? If we are not getting enough time to practice our spiritual process, that means we are working too much. So that is the understanding. That is what is yukta work. And yukta recreation, of course, sometimes little recreation is required, but not too much, not too little as well. Otherwise, it will be boring. So for the devotees, the recreation is that they come together, they associate with each other, they will have some kirtan, they will have some dance, they will have lots of wonderful prasadam. That's their recreation. But if we do other kind of recreation like watching TV, too much time on the social media, too much time on the movies or anything like that, then we are reducing the time that is available for practicing bhakti yoga or whatever yoga process that we are following. So this is why these two verses are important for even for bhakti yogis. Even though they are mentioned in the context of Ashtanga yoga, we can also use them. And it is mentioned that what is the result if you have this balanced way, not too much, not too little, for eating, sleeping, recreation, work? Then the result is we can practice. We will have some time to practice Ashtanga yoga or a yoga process. And then yogo bhavati dukkha. It can mitigate all material pains for the person who is doing like this. So what can we learn? A yogi should have regulated habits in eating, sleeping, recreation, and work. And I have purposely not said only Ashtanga yogi should have. It is actually applicable for all of us. If you are regulated in eating, sleeping, recreation, and work, then our life will be balanced. And with that balanced life, we will be able to practice the yoga process. Okay, so let us move on to the next verse. We are on 18th verse. Yeah. Yada viniyatam chittam atmannevavatishthate nispruha sarvakamephyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Yeah, Tripti Mataji, you can do.
First of all, I'm sorry. I've by mistake unmuted before when I was telling family members to open the door.
That's okay.
Sorry. Okay. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. We'll read the next one as well, and then we'll discuss. Yatha dipo nivatastho nengate sopamap smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogam atmanaha. Yes, Gita Jayanti Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. As a
Hare.
lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self.
Yeah, thank you. So these two verses are explaining one who is well established in this practice. Whatever has been mentioned till now, how he is balanced in his eating, sleeping, work, and recreation, then he's meditating properly, sitting at a proper place, and everything. So, like this, if someone has done, he's well established in yoga. So, these two verses are explaining this particular person who is well established. So, 18 and 19. So, when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities, so he has disciplined his mental activities. And this is quite important because Ashtanga yoga process, the definition of yoga that is given is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That is the definition of yoga process that that is given by Patanjali, sage Patanjali. So chitta vritti nirodha means all these material desires that we have to control that. Nirodha means to actually get rid of all these material desires that we have. And that is the definition of yoga as per Patanjali. So that is why there is so much focus in this Ashtanga yoga process on this mental activities, controlling the mind, and making the mind our friend. So he has to actually discipline his mental activities. If he let his mind wander here and there, it is very, very difficult for him to be well established in yoga. And well established in yoga means yukta yoga. So this verse as well, 18th verse also talks about yukta ityuchyate tada. So what is the yoga which is well established? So his mental activities are disciplined and he has become situated in transcendence. So being situated in transcendence means we have talked about there are three modes of material nature, which is mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this particular person has now gone above these three modes and he is now situated in transcendence. So he has given up, like he has got purified. He has given up these desires, the material problems that we have in the heart, which are the anger, greed, and ignorance. Everything is actually gone from our heart, and that means all the ignorance, passion, and even goodness is gone. And he's situated now in pure goodness. He's situated in transcendence. He's devoid of all material desires, and his mind is very steady. And the 19th verse actually gives this example that in a windless place, if there is some lamp, and this lamp doesn't waver at all, the flame of the lamp doesn't waver at all, it is very steady. Similarly, his mind is very, very steady on the Supreme Lord, which is he's focusing on the Paramatma. So that is how this person is well established in yoga. You have some question, Tripti Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
Sorry, when it is mentioned that it has to be balanced in food, sleep, and regulated everything, what about the sannyasi or yogis who meditate for years and years? Do they take break in between, or do they just sit? And because what I have noticed is if you meditate, the hunger goes down, definitely. But what happens to them? Does for them they don't feel hungry, don't feel sleepy, they just keep meditating?
Yeah, so at a very good question. At a very advanced stage in Ashtanga yoga, especially in very advanced stage of Ashtanga yoga, they may not feel any hunger, or they may not feel even thirst. So that is how they actually get some mystic powers as well at that level. And they may actually continue to meditate for days together. But then at that stage, they have gone far, far above this forcibly trying to regulate their habits. So, regulation is required when our mind is too much attached to sense gratification. So at that stage, we have to tell someone that, hey, don't do too much. Just be regulated, do little, and then so that you can get some time for your spiritual practice. But those who have found taste in the spiritual activities, we don't have to tell them that, hey, don't do this material activity, because they have already given up automatically. They don't have to actually regulate anything. So they are already at that level where this regulation thing is not applicable to them. Okay, fine. Okay, let's move on to verse 20 to 23. 4 verses together. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatman atmanam pashyannatmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrayam atindriyam vetti yatra na chaivayam sthitaschalati tatvatah yam labdhva cha param labham manyate nadikam tatah yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidyad dukkha sanyoga vyogam yoga samnitam. Yes, Nimi Mataji, please go ahead, and Vibhor Prabhuji, you can do the next one.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact.
Yeah, thank you very much. So these 4 verses are actually talking about samadhi stage. We talked about this Ashtanga yoga process, and the highest one was samadhi, where the meditation is now very perfect. So what happens at that level of perfection is explained in these 4 verses. So let us see some of the points. What are the realizations at the level of samadhi? So important thing is that they are free from miseries arising from material contact. So they have actually gone away where their senses are engaged with the sense objects. So they have gone away from that stage. So they are not hankering for something material. Because they are not hankering and they are not attached to the results, the problem that comes when they do not get it, or when they get it, people are fearful that now they will lose it. And that is where the miseries come. So because they are not attached to the fruits, there is freedom that they have. That is the last point here, which is mentioned. Freedom, free from all miseries arising from material contact. Then it is mentioned that they are unshaken. One remains unshaken even amidst of greatest difficulties. Now it is just mentioned that they are free from miseries. But now it is said that if they are unshaken in the greatest difficulties. So are there difficulties or not? So there is a difference. So the freedom from the first point that we talked about is they are internally detached, and that is why they don't feel any fear of losing something, and they don't feel angry when they don't get anything. So that is how they are free internally. But externally, something may happen around them which can pose difficulties. So it is not that once we become devotees of the Lord, the external problems which are going to generally we see in the material world, it is not that they are going to be gone completely. And you can see from the lives of most of the devotees, it is not that their material problems were removed completely. But the main important point that we can see here is they are unshaken. They are not actually disturbed in these difficulties. Even if there is greatest of difficulties, they don't say, "Oh Krishna, I have been actually doing this devotional service to you, and suddenly I was thinking now that I will be now free from these problems, but suddenly I'm getting so many problems in my life, somehow or the other. So why is that? Now you should remove these problems." No, Krishna is not saying that he will remove these problems from your life, but he is saying that he will give you the strength by which you can go through these material problems. So these people who are at the advanced stage, at the samadhi stage, they are unshaken. They remain fixed up. And so fixed up, they are fixed up. They focused on the truth. They gain highest gain, and they find the happiness. Now, this happiness is what you get when the soul is connected to the Supreme Lord. When the soul is connected to Supreme Lord, that is the process of yoga. That is the basic definition of yoga. Yoga means to connect. And what are we trying to connect? That is the soul to the Supreme Lord. And as soon as we do that connection, then happiness is going to come. And when we have this connection fully established, then there is a boundless transcendental happiness. We have been looking for this small, small little happiness here and there in the material world. This happiness is temporary, and it is mainly the little gap that we have between two miseries, and we call it little happiness. But this happiness is boundless. It is permanent, and it doesn't stop at all. It is eternal. So that kind of happiness we will start getting. And once we actually get this happiness, automatically we are free from the material desires. Of course, it's a process, gradual process that this person has actually gone through to remove these material desires. But at this level, they are not even interested in the material desires because they have got this higher knowledge, higher level of realizations. So that is the perfect stage of samadhi. Now, further, it is explained about the yoga rudha stage is again being mentioned in the next few verses. So we'll look at that. Methods to attain yoga rudha stage 24. सनिश्चयेन युक्तव्यो योगो निर्विण्ण चेतसा संकल्प प्रभवान कामांस त्यक्ता सर्वान् शेषतः मनसैवेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः. विभव.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not to be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can you
Hare Krishna.
continue and read part of the purport as well, especially the paragraph which starts with "as for determination"? It gives a small story which is wonderful to hear.
As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return the eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal, so so Sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out all the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate towards his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus, Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, l- lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus, the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda.
Yeah.
Similarly,
Continue, Brody, that paragraph.
Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be very difficult job. But if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help. For God helps those who help themselves.
Nice.
Hare
Isn't
Krishna.
that thank you, Brody. Isn't that a wonderful story? That what is the possibility of a sparrow trying to dry up the ocean? It's an impossible task. No one can even think about it. That's why it is mentioned that everyone laughed at the sparrow, saying that how is it possible? It will take many, many lifetimes, and even after many lifetimes as well, even like a small pond also cannot be dried by a sparrow. But by looking at the determination, this sparrow's determination, it attracted the mercy of Garuda. And if Garuda decides to do it, Garuda, is the devotee of the Lord, he's the carrier of the Lord, he has supreme power, and the Garuda can immediately drive the ocean if he decides. If he decides. So sincerity and determination in our effort is required. If that determination is there, then we will attract mercy. So we have to actually do our endeavors sincerely and with determination. And we have to have patience. And that is what is mentioned in this verse. That we need to have patience, determination, and we have to do it without deviation. We have to continue to do it. We have to have faith, and we have to control senses by mind and give up all material desires born of mental concoction. So there is a similar verse in Nectar of Instruction as well, which is quoted by Srila Prabhupada here, Nectar of Instruction. Verse number 3. Utsahan nishayat dhairyat tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vritte shadbir bhakti prasiddhati. So this verse is giving 6 factors which will help us in our devotional service. And what are the 6 factors? One can execute the process of Bhakti Yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is required. That is the first one. Then perseverance, nishchaya, and determination, dhairyat. By following the prescribed duty in the association of devotees, that is the next one, and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. So that is how there are 6 things which are mentioned. Utsahan, Nishchaya, Dhairya, Tattat Karma Pravartana, it is 4, which is actually doing the process of various different processes of devotional service. And Sangatyaga, we have to give up the association which is not good for bhakti, that is 5th one. And Satovritti. Satovritti is following in the footsteps of the devotees. And that is how we can become successful in our endeavors in Bhakti Yoga. So there as well, Utsahan, Nishchaya, Dhairya, these 3 things were mentioned, which are also visible here in this verse. So patience, why it is required? Patience is required because, especially in Ashtanga Yoga or actually in any yoga process, the result takes time. We will get some little realizations by doing our devotional service, and that will actually help us to continue. But it is not that Ashtanga Yogi starts his practice and within one lifetime he is going to go to Samadhi. It is very, very rare. And they may require multiple lifetimes. So he have to have patience and determination, because patience is required so that he can continue. And determination is required because he is not able to see the result, just like the sparrow was not able to see the result of drying the ocean. But that determination that I want to achieve this goal, I have to do it without deviation. Don't get deviated while doing it, little here, little there. then that kind of activity is not going to help. That, oh, Ashtanga yoga is not working, let me try this, let me try that. If you keep trying different paths or processes, then you will not reach anywhere. You will not reach the goal. And faith is required. Faith actually is the beginning. Even before you can do anything, faith is required. Only then you will get onto the path and then continue there. So that is how various different factors which are mentioned, which will help us to go to this yoga rudra stage. So what can we learn? So yogi should have patience, determination, and faith for becoming successful in his or her path. So any yogi who want to be successful, in fact, any endeavor that we are trying to do, if you want to become successful, what is required is we have to have patience, determination, and faith in the goal that is required. Only then we can progress. Okay, so let's continue. 25. No, is it 24 or 25? 24 we have done, 25. Shanay Shanay Ruparmeda Buddhaya Dhruti Gruhitaya Atma Samstham Manah Krutva Na Kinchidapi Chintayet. Yes, Gunjan Mataji.
Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. So here it is mentioned Shanay Shanay. Little progress that we have to keep doing. Lord is actually continuing talking about Yoga Rudha stage and how to attain the Yoga Rudha stage. So Utsaha Nishaya Dhairyat, that has been mentioned in the previous verse. And now in this verse, it is mentioned that intelligence sustained by full conviction, because the result is going to be far away. It is going to take long time. So the intelligence sustained by full conviction will be required. And the mind is fixed in oneself, not thinking of anything else. So the mind is also fixed. And then step by step, one achieves success. So the yogi needs to understand that there is not going to be like this magical thing that is going to happen overnight. We are going to be in samadhi, and overnight we are going to see the Lord. It is going to take little shanay, little one step at a time, we can actually progress. And this point is important for all of us as well to understand. Our progress happens shanay, little progress that happens. And sometimes, because it is like small progress that is happening, we don't even sometimes notice it, because we are seeing ourselves every time. So we don't actually notice this small progress that is happening. But suddenly, when you meet someone after 2 years, 3 years, then suddenly they actually start talking about, hey, what are you trying to do now? Because you are a completely different person as compared to what you were 2, 3 years ago. And then you realize that, oh, yeah, I think there is some change that people are noticing in me. And this change, and of course, over a period of time, we will also start getting some little realization that we are becoming more peaceful, more calm, more happier. Our anger has gone down. And these are only the side effects. The material anarthas are going away slowly. The main progress is on the spiritual path, where we are going closer and closer to Krishna. So this verse also is talking about pratyahara, where it is saying the mind is fixed on in oneself, not thinking of anything else. So the mind is now detached, or the yogi is trying to make the mind detached from the sense objects. That is what he's trying to mention. And the next verse also talks a little bit more about pratyahara. Let's go to 26. Yato yato nishchalati manaschalam asthiram manaschanchalam asthiram tatastato niyamyaitad atmanyeva vasham nayet. Yes, Anupriya Radha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
Yeah. And this actually verse we can also utilize in our day-to-day bhakti yoga practice as well. Thank you, Mataji. This is a very important verse. What is mentioned? Mind is flickering and unsteady. When we are chanting, our mind is flickering and unsteady. And it mentions it wanders. Yeah, we know that very nicely because when we are chanting, our mind is wandering here. We are thinking about the to-do list, what we have to do at work, what has gone wrong yesterday, what we can do better today. So many things we'll start thinking. Exactly when our mind, we get some time for thinking, right? So we are chanting and we are thinking we are not doing anything. Let me utilize our mind in thinking other things. And the formula for controlling is given here, that it says that as soon as it goes somewhere, we have to bring it back. And again it goes, we have to bring it back. And that is why it is mentioned that while chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we have to hear the mantra. And when we actually notice that we have stopped hearing and our mind has started wandering, we have to actually bring back the mind to hear the mantra. So this is exactly what is mentioned in this verse. Whenever we see that the mind has wandered here and there, we have to bring it back. Bring it back to the sound vibration of the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And that is how we can progress. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that one who controls the mind is called Goswami. Go means senses, and Swami is the control of the senses. So there are 5 senses, but the 6th sense is the stronger than the other 5 senses, and that 6th sense is the mind. So one who controls the mind and the senses is Goswami, but who's controlled by the mind is called Godas. So we are currently Godasas, and we want to become Goswamis, which is possible by trying to bring the mind back, trying to bring the mind back. Whenever it wanders here and there, we should not be letting it wander. We have to bring it back. We should not think that I think the mind is going every time. Let it go. We will let it go everywhere, and we will just try to complete our chanting. No. As soon as you realize that the mind has wandered, bring it back to the sound vibration of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra chanting, and that is how we can progress. And in this context of Ashtanga Yoga, also it is mentioned that when the yogi sees that the mind has wandered here and there, it will bring it back and try to control the mind by controlling the breathing as well as trying to focus at the tip of the nose and try to continue the meditation on the Paramatma. Let's move on to the next verses. 27 and 28 together we'll read. प्रशान्तमनसं ह्येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतम् akalmasham. Who wants to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I read?
Yes, Ashoka Mataji and Nimi Mataji, you can do the next one.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me, verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Verse number 28. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmasha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. You're on mute, Mataji. Nimi Mataji. Shanti Mataji, you can do the next one.
Sorry, Prabhuji. Does the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest state of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord?
Yeah, thank you. So these two verses, 27 and 28, are talking about this person who's at the level of samadhi. Now he's getting the Brahman realization. So he goes beyond the mode of passion and ignorance. He's free from all reactions to his past deeds. And Brahma Samsparsha is mentioned here. Transcendental happiness he gets. So that is how, like it has been mentioned in the previous few verses as well, in those 4 verses where we were talking about samadhi. So that stage is again explained here in these 2 verses. and then we will go further and see the Paramatma realization that he's getting. In 28 and 29 explains that. 28 we have seen, 29. सर्वभूतस्थम् आत्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि इक्षते योगयुक्तात्मा सर्वत्र समदर्शनः.
A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Paramatma realization has been mentioned here. It is said a true yogi observes me in all being. So how he is seeing the Supreme Lord in all beings? We have seen in the 5th chapter as well, where it was mentioned Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavistani, that verse. So there the yogi, even the Nishkama Karma yogi, was able to see everyone equal, and he was seeing everyone was having the Supreme Lord sitting in their heart. So here as well it is mentioned the same. A true yogi observes me in all being. So the true yogi sees the Supreme Lord as Paramatma sitting in everyone's heart and sees every being in me, and everything is within the Supreme Lord also. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So Krishna is clearly saying, I am that Paramatma that yogi sees everywhere. Me has been mentioned. So it is not that Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, the Bhagavan, and Paramatma are different. It is just a different realization of the same Supreme Lord. The Lord is personally as well in front as Lord Shri Krishna, and the same Lord expands and he is in our heart as Paramatma as well. The next verse as well talks about this Paramatma realization. Verse number 30. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yes, Ramakrishna Prabhuji. Yes, please go.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare.
Translation. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, so such a person who is at the Paramatma realization, he is seeing the Supreme Lord in each and every person. For such a person, the Lord says, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So such a person will remember the Supreme Lord always. And the interesting thing is there is a reciprocation. The Lord also is saying that he never lost to me. I also actually are remembering that such a person. So there is this reciprocation that is mentioned. Reciprocation means there is some relationship that is being talked about. And that relationship is generally possible at the Bhagavan level. So that is why Lord Shri Krishna is saying, he's directly mentioning about himself. So it is even one level further than the Paramatma realization. It is Bhagavan kind of realization. Here it is mentioned for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. So again, he himself is referring to himself. And I am never lost, and he is never lost to me. So 4 times the Lord is referring to himself in this particular verse. So this is like an advanced stage where this Ashtanga yogi somehow or the other possibly comes in contact with the devotee and then gets even the Bhagwan realization. Next verse. सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजते कत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते. Ramakrishna Prabhu, you want to read the next one as well?
Yeah, if I can, Prabhu.
Yeah, please go ahead. And Sudharma Mataji, you can do the last one.
Translation. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Another important verse where Krishna is saying clearly that such a person who understands that I and Super Soul are one, that the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and super soul, Paramatma, are not different, such a person remains always in me in all circumstances. So, Ashtanga yogi, such an Ashtanga yogi will always remain in that samadhi. And if it is a bhakti yogi, he will always remain in that Krishna consciousness and he will not get deviated. The person who understands the true nature of the Supreme Lord. And in the 4th chapter also, we saw that Janma Karma Chame Divyam. In that verse, it was mentioned that the person who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, he will come back to me. He will never come back to this material world. So that is how. So we will go back to the Supreme Lord. And here it is said that such a person always remains in me in all circumstances. Next verse, 32. आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति सो योऽर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः. Sudharma.
He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So here in these two verses, 31 and 32, actions of the perfect yogi are mentioned. So this yogi is seeing the Supreme Lord everywhere, and that was mentioned previously. And then in the 31, it is mentioned that he sees the Super Soul and Krishna in oneness. He understands that the Supreme Lord and Paramatma are same, and sees equality of all beings, tries to help everyone. There is no distinction between enemy and friend. And by turning their consciousness to Krishna, that is what is mentioned in this 32nd verse. So Srila Prabhupada actually, when he was commenting on this verse number 32 in one of the lectures, he mentions that a devotee, he doesn't sit idly upon attaining self-realization. So once they are self-realized, it is not that they will just think that, oh, I am now done. My job is done. I will not actually then get involved in anything else. Srila Prabhupada said that he must go out and distribute his knowledge to everyone who's suffering in this world. He compares the yogi who's satisfied with his own salvation to the selfless and compassionate devotee. So, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that after self-realization, we should not be just sitting idle. We should be trying to give the knowledge to others so that others can also progress on the spiritual path. And that is what is the instruction given by Lord Chaitanya for everyone. Jare dekha tare kahe Krishna Upadesh. And in the parampara of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can see all the devotees try to pass on the knowledge that they get and the experiences that they get, they share with others and try to inspire others so that they can also take Krishna consciousness and progress in their path. So we will stop here, and then the remaining section from 33 to 47 we'll try to cover next week. Okay. Any comments, any questions or reflections that you have? Yes, Sudharma Mataji, your hand is up for a question, or it is just from the reading that you were doing?
From the reading, Prabhuji, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, Mahendra Prabhuji, you have some questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yeah. Just a quick one out of curiosity. Like verse 19, you were mentioning about this yoga chitta vritti nirodha, which is controlling all material desires. And you mentioned the word Patanjali. So if I have heard it correctly. So what is it like?
So the sage Patanjali has given elaborate discussion. He has written this Patanjali Sutras, and that talks mainly about Ashtanga Yoga, how the Ashtanga Yogi should be doing, what are the Yama Niyamas, and those who are following Ashtanga Yoga, they will actually follow this Patanjali's books of how to do Ashtanga Yoga. And that in the initial few verses itself, the sutra comes where he says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So he's defining what is yoga, and he says that what is yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. The mind wanders here and there on material desires, and we have to nirodha. We have to stop that, and that is yoga.
Thank you, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Any other comments, reflections? Yes, Sudharma Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I think this chapter very nicely is described though it's Ashtanga Yoga, comparing that to Bhakti Yoga, how everything, the Anga of Ashtanga Yoga can be used for Bhakti Yoga, how we can apply each and everything in controlling the mind, in doing our devotional service.
Yes, yes, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you for that reflection. Nimi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I think how you started and finished the chapter was really good, right? So I think how you said that what is the key purpose of the yogi, right? So the key purpose here is spiritual advancement and having that Krishna prema. I think that was really good. And in the end, how we said, right, that what are the key qualities of a yogi, right? And then this I've been hearing in the previous chapter as well, which is you have an equal vision, right? So the idea here is to help others as well, right? And the second thing is who knows that there's no difference between the super soul, absolute, and Krishna, right? So I think that was really good. And in between, I think the regulation and the discipline, right? This is something which we always think about it, right? That how can you become a yogi, right? So I think the key thing, not only eating and sleeping, but also our day to day, whether it's your work or whether it's recreation, I think that is really very good. And the samadhi, right? Again, very good connection to chapter 5, right? That what is the happiness? You don't want the temporary happiness, you want the permanent happiness. And also it's not external, but internally as well, right? Like in chapter 5, you are not affected by happiness, also and you don't angry, in different situations. So I think, yeah, so those things are really good.
Okay,
Hare Krishna.
thank you. Very good summary. Gita Jayanti Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. So I think what I remember from the whole class, because I didn't take notes, was that one is that we have to live a very regulated life, and that's regulation in eating, sleeping, and in recreation. And you so nicely mentioned what all recreation we are permitted to do. And other than that, I remember is you need dedication, faith, and enthusiasm in any endeavor. Could be spiritual endeavor, material endeavor, anything. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Thank you for
Hare
your
Krishna.
comments and reflections. Any other reflections, comments, summary points, questions?
6.24 Prabhuji talks about patience, determination,
Yes.
like the sparrow did for and which attracted the attention of Garuda. In terms of sleeping and fooding habits, you mentioned food in stomach should be half filled with food, 1/4 with air and 1/4 with water. That was something which you mentioned. It was not in the verse, so I noted it down. That might be something which you all would like to be mindful about.
It's hard to know how much our stomach can take, isn't it?
True, Prabhuji.
How much is half, how much is water, and how much is that? So basically, it says that have regulation, because it also says that the size of our stomach is actually not bigger than this closed fist. So if you actually think that, oh, this is the size of our stomach, then half of that is so less. So we will starve like that. That is what we feel. But having regulation is important. Yukta ahara is required. Yes, Surananda Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah, there are so many points that I need to implement in my life, and yeah, that already others covered. But one thing I wanted to tell is, if you go towards Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate in the same way back towards.
Yes, reciprocation, and he has referred to that reciprocation in chapter 4 as well. Who remembers where he has mentioned that reciprocation in chapter 4? It's a very famous verse.
Ye yatamam prapadyante tam stataiva.
Yes, correct. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamiham. So as you surrender unto me, I'll reciprocate with you accordingly. So that is what the Lord has mentioned. So here as well, he is mentioning the same, that um, for a devotee who's always thinking about me, I am also thinking about that person. Isn't that wonderful? that the Lord is thinking about a devotee who is always thinking about him. Yeah. So just to close, I'll just mention this example that I was hearing in one of the lectures, that how a person who is traveling in a train. So suppose you want to go urgently. There was some urgent work that is there, someone is sick or whatever, and you didn't get time to, or the reservation was not possible, and you are actually going into this general compartment of a train. Now, even if it is a long journey and there are so many other inconveniences which are there in that train, that you do not have a place to sit. It is not even an AC compartment. There is no proper place to sit or sleep or whatever. Then so many people are coming, going, they are shouting, they are doing this and that, and you are not able to take any rest. So there are so many inconveniences which are there. But you are still going because the goal that you have is that someone, my loved one, needs me there. So there is that higher purpose that you have for making that train journey. And because of that, you are ready to actually go through so many inconveniences. So that is one, because you have higher goal. The second is, you know it is temporary. You know that it is going to just take some whatever few hours, 8 hours, 10-hour journey is there. So you know it is temporary. So whatever is the situation, it is going to change. I'm not going to be permanently in this situation. So we know that it is temporary. So we are able to tolerate it. And we have to have this determination that this goal that I have, higher goal, I have to actually achieve it. That's why we are actually going through these difficulties. Similarly, all yoga processes or anything good that you want to achieve in our life, even materially as well, if anyone wants to achieve good in their life, something great in their life, they have to actually go through this. There is that temporary phase where when you are struggling, and there are always some difficulties you will go through, but you have to have patience, determination, and you have to have that tolerance to go through all of that situation. And this is only possible if you have a higher goal. You want to achieve something higher. So all the yogis have this higher purpose, that they want to connect to the Supreme Lord. They want to purify themselves from this goodness, passion, and ignorance. And once that heart is cleaned, then with that clean heart, they want to actually worship the Supreme Lord, serve the Supreme Lord. They are not trying to clean their heart just for their own enjoyment. They still want to actually do that purification so that they can actually serve the Supreme Lord properly. And they know that this phase of cleaning or anartha nivrutti is going to be a struggle, but they know that it is a temporary phase, and if they actually have this perseverance to go through it, then they will reach that higher goal. So with that thought, we will stop, that we need to have that higher goal to serve the Supreme Lord properly. And even if there is struggle, this is going to be a temporary phase, so we have to just go through it. Okay. Hare Krishna. Sudharma Mataji, you have some question or comment?
No, Prabhuji, the last one I want to share, the one very catchy thing is Yare Deko Tahe Karo Krishna Padesh. Like even
Yes.
though you may be a self-realized person, but you don't keep within yourself. That's the main thing of Krishna conscious, which Prabhupada is saying, spread it to everyone.
Correct. And that is how Srila Prabhupada showed by his own example. He's a pure devotee, but and he was well situated in Vrindavan, and that too in Radha Damodar temple, where he was in the room from where he can see Rupa Goswami's Samadhi and be always there thinking about it. But he said that, okay, I want to fulfill the desire of my spiritual master. So he left everything and he went to America, and that too amongst hippies. So probably from the best place to the worst place. But for him, because Krishna is in his heart, and wherever he was going, that was Vrindavan. So with that consciousness, it is like that, where it is mentioned, the verse that we were talking about, that the person who is always thinking of Krishna, Krishna is thinking about that person. So yeah, good. Thank you very much. Let us stop here, and we'll continue on this chapter next week. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
jai.
Hare